Hi and welcome back. It feels like it's been ages since I've done one of these sit down kind of chatty videos, particularly from my sofa, which I actually really miss it. Like I miss being sat here yapping. So yeah, it feels good to be back. So today I'm going to speak about something that I'm kind of in the middle of, or maybe I'm not really in the middle of it. I could potentially just be in the very beginnings of it, and it is learning to fall in love with the process of becoming. So I'm coming up to nearly 3 months of sharing more online, doing these sorts of videos, and that's why I'm kind of hesitant to say that I'm in the middle of it, because I do think I'm very much in the beginning. And I've really been feeling like I'm finally starting to let myself just enjoy the process of something. And I say finally because although I've been kind of doing that since the start of sharing these sorts of videos and blog posts and things like that, in my life as a whole, I'm not the biggest fan of the process. So that is what we're going to get into today, and we're also going to look at a few little practical kind of tips and tricks that I think will hopefully help you too. So when I was younger, I was painfully shy, like really, really shy. And as I got older, although I do still have my shy moments, I think now it's more introversion. So it's not necessarily that I'm shy, it's just kind of I don't always need to share or be the loudest or leave my house. But I do think that an element of this shyness as I got older transformed into maybe some perfectionism. And the way that this showed up when it comes to the process and kind of allowing myself to be creative is that I wanted everything to be like the final product. I didn't really want there to be a process, or if there was going to be one, I wanted to be good at it. I wanted to have got it straight away, which yeah, just isn't realistic. And I think where that links back to when I was younger is that I kind of had this mindset of, well, if something's perfect and it's finished and it's done, then it doesn't leave it as open to being criticized or to failing. And the thing is those standards are just impossible. Like, they're so unsustainable and they're just quite stifling because it doesn't allow for the kind of process and the journey to that end product to be properly witnessed, even just by yourself. Like, you don't have to share your process, you don't have to share whatever you're creating, but you have to allow yourself to see it. And I think that's where I was really stopping myself from doing that. And what's crazy with that is that some of the content that I enjoy consuming the most is from people who are like figuring it out, and people who are kind of putting themselves out there and maybe changing their mind one week and changing it back the next, and trying to really see what works for them and what also works for the community that they are trying to build. I think there's just something so compelling about watching people go through the process. And I think a big part of that is it really stops you from feeling so alone when you're in the process of figuring things out. So we're going to go back to my childhood, my painfully shy childhood again. Although I was maybe a teenager at this point, but when I was younger, I found this magnet that said, happiness is not a destination, it's a way of life. Now, I was absolutely way too young to be like looking at, I don't know, for some reason I just don't think that's kind of the thing I probably should have been really focused on picking up from a gift shop when I was that age. But for some reason I was like, yeah, that's what I want. I want that magnet. It resonated with me in some way, and I had it stuck on a mirror in my room for years, actually until I moved out from my family home, so a long time. And it's just funny to me now as I kind of look back at this process that I'm in at the moment, but also look back to having that message kind of very visible to me every day when I was younger. And I'm not really talking about happiness in today's video, but the message kind of still stands. Like, the process of becoming, that's the destination. And I know this sounds really cheesy, but I do think that that's where like a lot of the kind of magic is, or a lot of the growth is. I think for me, that kind of, particularly in this creative journey that I'm embarking on, it could kind of mean that like I'm very focused on subscribers, or potentially getting like a book deal or things like that, things that are very far off in the future, not unattainable. But I've come to realize that the more that you kind of place your happiness in those kind of milestones and final goals, the more it means that your kind of joy and happiness is always just out of reach, which just is not, like, for me anyway, that is not a happy, healthy, productive place for me to be. And the more that you allow yourself to fall in love and enjoy the process, the more you will open yourself up to opportunities to learn and grow. And this can be learning and growing in so many ways. Like, I'm at the moment trying to learn a lot about how like SEO works and websites work, because that's kind of what I've found that I'm really enjoying. But it could be so many things. Like, if you're doing art, you're painting, you're musical, you're writing songs, or there's just so many different avenues that you could be taking, and you could be so focused on that final product and that perfect product that you miss out on so many opportunities along the way to learn, grow, to maybe even pivot to it in a different direction. So yeah. And I think following on from that is that kind of focusing yourself back to where your feet are, and being very present in this kind of process of becoming. You also give yourself the opportunity to really hone in on the things that you actually really enjoy, but also the other way around. You can kind of pick out the elements that you don't enjoy, and that maybe at the beginning you felt like, I should do this, but as time's gone on, you're kind of like, why? Like, if I don't enjoy that element of it, why should I keep pushing with it? So, speaking of the ways that I've kind of been able to determine what works for me and what doesn't, we're going to look at a few practical steps that will hopefully help you fall in love with the process of becoming. So, I've mentioned this before and I'm a firm believer in it, but the first tip is just remove timelines from the journey that you're on. When we lock ourselves into rigid timelines, we're just setting ourselves up for failure. Even if we reach those timelines, there's potentially been a lot of stress and a lot of discomfort, and not the positive kind of discomfort to get there. It's best to just focus on what you can control, not set kind of timeline-based goals that have a lot of external factors, and just really focus on what you can do in the here and now. Step number 2 kind of relates to what I said earlier about being able to define what you enjoy and what you don't enjoy. So this step is just to stay curious. When something's lighting you up and you feel good, do more of it. When something isn't, do less of it if you can. If you can't, find a way to make it more enjoyable, I guess. The next step is to find your anchors. So this can be either doing a daily check-in with yourself, weekly check-in, monthly check-in, whatever kind of cadence works for you. Doing these check-ins to kind of anchor yourself back to the journey and the process is so important. This could be through journaling, or maybe you're like me and you're a big yapper, and so I do voice memos to myself like all the time. I'll go for walks and just the whole walk I'll just be yapping away to myself about what's going on, what I want to do more of, what I want to do less of, and that really helps me because saying it out loud makes me kind of like, I don't know, maybe just the way my brain works. If I'm talking something out, I kind of can work it out as I'm talking. So that's really helpful for me. I do those a lot. And these anchors, the whole purpose of them is to remind you of where you are now, regardless of where you might be going. The next step is to let your process be seen, although I am going to add that's if you want to. You, of course, don't have to share everything you're doing. Like, you just, I feel like I don't need to go into that. That should be very clear. You do not need to be posting about every single thing you're doing, everything you're trying. But if it is something that you're interested in, then you absolutely should go for it. As I said, I love to consume the content from people who are like in the process, people who are figuring things out. Like, I find it motivating, engaging, and yeah, I just find it really enjoyable. But you absolutely don't have to do that if you don't want to. However, it does lead me on to step 5. I'm just checking that I've counted my step numbers right. So, step 5, you don't have to do step 4 to do step 5, but you might refer back to it. But the last one is to revisit your process regularly. So, if you are sharing online, that could be going back and watching old videos or listening to old podcasts or things that you've created and shared. You can go back and look at those. But if you aren't sharing, you can go back to old journal entries, you can listen to old voice memos, which is, yeah, something that I would be doing. Or you can just look through your camera roll. I actually do that a lot. Like sometimes if I want to kind of work out what I was doing or where I was, even if I haven't actually been anywhere, like looking through my camera roll kind of jogs my memory a lot. But the point of this is that looking at all those small moments, maybe it's like a journal entry that was like 1 page long of just kind of riffing about something, all those tiny seeming moments do compound into something much bigger. And being able to get that perspective is everything. So that is it for today's video. Now, in a lot of ways, I'm nowhere near ready to be seen, but I'm definitely a lot closer, and I'm even more closer since I started allowing myself to kind of fall in love with this like messy middle, this in between. And I think sometimes when you come to terms with and feel at peace with that kind of in between phase, that starts to feel like enough. It gives you enough challenge and enough creativity, but it also gives you time to step back and really evaluate what's going well and what isn't going well, and where you might see things going. So wherever you are in kind of whatever in between messy process you're in, you're absolutely in the right place. So if this resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Where are you right now in your process? And if you found this helpful, then please do subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.